A few days ago, we told you that the Philippines had committed thousands of acres of land to become part of a global technology alliance built around semiconductors and artificial intelligence. At the time, the story was framed as a win. The Philippines had a seat at the table. Today, we are going to ask a much harder and much more important question. It is not whether the Philippines belongs in this alliance. It clearly does. And the real question is this: when more than 20 countries sit down to divide up the future of the most important technology on Earth, did the Philippines negotiate like the countries that are about to get rich? Or did it negotiate like a country that will once again do the low-value work while others capture the profit? That question is worth far more than any single piece of land. And to answer it, you first have to understand what this alliance actually is. Because the Philippines is not the subject of this story. It is one node in something much larger. The initiative brings together more than 20 nations in a deliberate, coordinated effort to rewire the entire global supply chain for advanced semiconductors, the tiny chips that power everything from your phone to artificial intelligence in real time while that technology is still being built. Nothing like this has been attempted before in the history of the global economy. And here is the key to understanding all of it. This coalition was not assembled randomly. Each member was chosen because it controls one critical piece of the chip-making puzzle. Let me show you the pieces, because once you see them, the Philippines' position becomes crystal clear. The United States controls chip design. The companies that architect the world's most advanced chips, NVIDIA, AMD, Qualcomm, Apple, are American. South Korea controls memory. Samsung and SK Hynix together supply the overwhelming majority of the world's advanced memory chips, the exact kind that artificial intelligence systems devour at massive scale. Japan controls precision manufacturing equipment and the specialized chemicals that chip making requires. The United Kingdom controls chip architecture through a company called ARM, whose designs sit inside almost every smartphone on Earth. Australia controls critical minerals, the lithium, cobalt, and rare earths that go into batteries and chips. And then there is the single most important member of all, one that almost nobody outside the industry has heard of: the Netherlands. The Netherlands is home to a company called ASML, and ASML has a monopoly unlike anything else in the global economy. It is the only company on Earth that makes the machines capable of etching the most advanced chips. Not the best, the only. Every advanced chip made by every major manufacturer in the world is made using Dutch machines from this one company. There is no substitute and no alternative, and there will not be one for at least a decade, even with unlimited money. When the United States wanted to slow down China's chip ambitions, the most powerful lever it had was not an American company at all. It was restricting these Dutch machines. That is how central they are. So when you look at this coalition, you are looking at a group where each member brings something essential and in return receives protection, technology investment, and a guaranteed place in the most important industry of the next 50 years. And now here is where it gets interesting for us. And here is the analytical heart of this entire video. Not every member is bringing the same kind of value, and not every member is extracting the same kind of benefit. And that difference is everything. Look at what the sophisticated members did. They did not just join, they negotiated hard for what they would keep. Consider India. India joined and immediately committed its own public money to building domestic chip factories, and it demanded technology transfer as a condition of access to its market. India did not offer to simply dig up minerals and provide cheap labor. It said, If you want access to us, you must teach us to build the high-value things ourselves. Consider Australia. Australia sits on enormous mineral wealth, and it made a crucial move. It began requiring that minerals be processed domestically before export. Why does that matter? Because the money in minerals is not in digging them out of the ground. It is in refining and processing them. A ton of raw ore is worth a fraction of what that same ton is worth once it has been processed into battery grade or chip grade material. Australia insisted on capturing that higher value at home. Consider Japan. When it partnered on a major chip facility, it insisted that Japanese engineers be trained in the most advanced processes so that Japan would retain that capability permanently, no matter how the politics of the future shift. Do you see the pattern that the winners in this coalition all did the same thing? They used their entry ticket to demand that they move up the value chain. They refused to remain at the bottom doing the cheap work. They extracted knowledge, capability, and higher value activity as the price of their participation. Now let us place the Philippines honestly within this picture. What does the Philippines bring to the table? 3 genuinely valuable things. First, critical minerals. The Philippines holds enormous untapped reserves of nickel, copper, cobalt, and gold, all essential inputs for chips and batteries. Second, 5 decades of experience in electronics. Remember, electronics already make up well over half of everything the Philippines exports. The country has a real established base in assembling and testing electronic components. Third, and this is often underestimated, strategic geography. The Philippines sits in one of the most important locations in Asia, close to the heart of the global chip industry, with a long-standing alliance with the United States. So the Philippines brings real value. That is not in question. The question is what it is getting back. And here is where the honest analysis becomes uncomfortable but essential. The Philippines has made one of the largest, most concrete commitments of any member of this entire coalition. A commitment of land measured not in years, but in decades, under a special governance framework with access to its minerals included. In terms of the sheer scale and duration of what it put on the table, the Philippines offered more than almost anyone, and yet in publicly documented terms, it is less clear what binding guarantees it secured in return than for almost any other major member. India secured commitments to build its own industry. Australia secured higher value processing at home. Japan secured the training of its own engineers. These are written, enforceable, and public. For the Philippines, the enforceable guarantees on the things that actually matter, real technology transfer, training Filipino engineers and designers rather than just assembly workers, and processing minerals at home rather than shipping them out raw, are the great unanswered question. And that distinction between assembly and everything above it is the entire ballgame. Here is why it matters so much. For 50 years, the Philippines has participated in the global electronics industry, mainly at the assembly and testing stage. This is the final, lowest value step, putting the pieces together after the valuable design and fabrication has happened elsewhere. Assembly creates jobs, yes, but it captures the thinnest slice of the profit, the design, the fabrication, the processing. That is where the real wealth is created, and that has always happened in other countries. So the single most important question about the Philippines' role in this new coalition is whether it will finally move up, or whether it will spend a third consecutive generation stuck doing the low value work while the high value work and the high value wealth accumulates elsewhere. This is the ASML lesson applied to the Philippines. The Netherlands did not just let its crown jewel company sit inside the alliance. It used its membership to lock in protection and advantage for its highest value asset. The Philippines needs to do the equivalent. It needs to use its membership and the significant commitment it has already made to extract the one thing that changes its economic destiny. The knowledge and capability to stop being the assembly floor and start being a genuine center of higher value production. So what is the takeaway for you as an investor and as someone thinking seriously about this country's future? First, understand that the opportunity is real and enormous. A nation sitting on a fortune in minerals with a huge electronics base and a critical location absolutely belongs in this coalition. Being absent would have been a historic mistake. Being present is the right decision. Second, understand that being present is not the same as winning. The value is not captured by showing up. It is captured by what you negotiate once you are inside. And that part for the Philippines is still being written. Third, and this is the investor's mindset, watch for the specific signals that will tell you whether this becomes transformative or disappointing. Watch for whether the minerals get processed domestically or shipped out raw. Watch for whether Filipino engineers and designers are being trained or just assembly workers. Watch for whether higher value operations actually get built on that land, or whether it remains once again the final assembly step in someone else's supply chain. Those signals over the next few years will tell you everything. Because here is the deepest truth of this entire story. The most important decisions in economics are rarely the loud ones. They are the quiet technical terms buried in agreements that almost nobody reads. A country can join the most important alliance of the century and still walk away with very little if it does not insist on climbing the ladder. Or it can use that same membership to fundamentally change its economic destiny. The Philippines has been handed a genuine opportunity to do the second. Whether it does depends not on the land it gave, but on the terms it secured for what it gets back. And that is the number every serious observer should be watching. No, not the size of the commitment, the size of what was won in return. Because in the end, showing up to the table was never the achievement. What you leave the table holding is the only thing that counts.